and welcome to this Coda Guitar series on cigar box guitar playing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at some fingerstyle patterns, right hand fingerstyle patterns. Now this is a fairly standard 3-string cigar box guitar. Obviously you can get 4-string and whatnot, but we're just looking at 3-string in this video, and this is tuned to the most common tuning that you get. Loads of great ones. This is more widely used than others. So I've got 3 strings here. The thickest one at the top is tuned to a low G, and the middle one is tuned to a D, and the thinnest one physically at the bottom, that's tuned to a high G. So if you want to check your tuning here, we've got G, low G, middle string is D, and we've got G at the top. So what we're looking at is finger picking patterns, and typically we play sort of roots and blues style music on these instruments, so we want to be playing sort of fairly driving rhythms, and how we often achieve this is we sort of separate out what our thumb and our fingers are doing. So I actually happen to be using a thumb pick here, if you can see that. It just makes it slightly louder in the thumb, and slightly sharper because it's plastic, so sounds a little bit different to plucking with your thumb. Doesn't really matter at all, you know, just whatever's your personal preference. But what can be useful is to use a bit of what we call palm muting, where I'm actually just resting on this lowest sounding G, and I'm just muffling, or if you can hear the difference there, dampening the sound a bit. So what we do is we use this part of our palm, which is closest to the little finger, and we just rest just sort of this side of the bridge slightly, and we just dampen the string. So if you look at the angle that I'm coming across at here, it's fairly sort of diagonal, and so I'm going to keep that, and then I'm just going to move across the length of the string and then stick with something when I think it sounds good. If you're playing with a bit more distortion, you can probably mute a little bit more than normal. This is quite a clean sound, so I'm just going to be muffling this, dampening the sound a little bit. What I want to try and do is not muffle the D and the high G, however. So palm muted, not palm muted. Okay. So, most music that you'll play will have what we call 4 beats in a bar. So the thumb typically sort of drives the music and plays on the beat, and then typically your fingers either play with the thumb or in between, and you can create nice different sort of rhythmical patterns depending on the song that you're playing. So just to start with, we're going to start, if you want to play along, here's the thumb, so that's just on the beat, which is just where you'd naturally tap your foot if you're listening to some music. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my middle finger on the high G, and I'm going to put that in between. So it's thumb, finger, 2, 3, 4, thumb, finger, 2, 3, 4, so thumb, finger, 2, and so you can keep adding in your finger in between the thumb notes. So we can also do the same thing with our index finger on the middle D string. So I can go thumb, index, thumb, index. Okay. So what we're now going to do is obviously practice that, make sure that's okay. We're going to switch between middle then index, always in between the thumb. So it's thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index. So yeah, play along with this. We're just going to be playing open strings here because we're just looking at picking patterns. So there's another video where we're going to be looking at 12-bar blues, which is just a typical structure that we use for blues music. So you can apply some of these right-hand finger picking patterns to that. But just in this video, we're just playing the open strings. So a bit faster, it might sound like this. Thumb. So just a little bit more energy to it. If you want to just pick that up, join in, thumb, middle thumb, index 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 thumb, middle thumb, index. And then a little bit faster still. So the thumb is at a proper sort of foot tapping speed there, and it sounds quite fast because the fingers are always in between what the thumb's doing. So you're really sort of driving it along. It's like bubbling away. Okay, so that's the first pattern. Play it on your own, keep it in time as much as you possibly can, playing along with either a metronome or a drum beat if you've got access to a drummer or drum machine or something is really good, but certainly just having knowing that you're definitely in time is and keeping a consistent speed all the way through is excellent, really useful, that one. So second picking pattern, what we're going to do here is sometimes you can do a pull where you can play with your thumb and your finger at the same time. So I'm going to use my middle finger here. So straight away, thumb on the low G, middle finger on the high G. Now, one thing that is worth thinking about actually is with your thumb, keep it further forward than your fingers so that they're not interfering when they start both playing at the same time or in between. So my thumb wants to stay quite straight, so I'm not bending from these joins here. It's the movement is coming all the way from the base of the thumb, so it's moving in a straight line like this. But the fingers do flex up and sort of move into the palm of your hand a little bit, if you can see that. So the thumb and the finger movements are slightly different to each other. Okay, so that's a really useful thing to try and get into, because you know, even more complicated playing is made up of all of these simple little building blocks. So if you get those right, it makes it much easier when you get onto more complicated, more advanced styles or songs. So pattern number 2, we're going to start with a pull together. So, and I'm just going to play some more thumb notes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now once we've got this, it's actually fairly straightforward, because all we're going to do is just put some finger notes in between. So it's pull, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb. So pull together, middle and thumb, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, together, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb. So a bit faster, it might be like this. So great blues, folky, even pop sort of pattern, that one. And again, make sure that the timing is as consistent as possible. It's really difficult to keep stuff like that going for a prolonged period of time when you've only just learnt it, so don't worry if you keep it going for 4 or 8 cycles round before you start making a few errors or adding variations in, but keep it as consistent as you possibly can, and that'll be really good for your playing. So the final one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing with 2 fingers, index and middle, on 1 string. So on this high G here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with a thumb to start with, then I'm going to go index and then a pull, middle and thumb, and then another index in between. So it's thumb, index, pull with the middle, index, thumb, index, pull with the middle, index. And I can reverse that, and I can go thumb, middle, index, middle, thumb, middle, index, middle. So that's leading with your index finger first, then leading with your middle finger first. So the pull is on the middle, and then it's on the index. And you can try that on the middle string as well, so on the plucking with your fingers on the D string. So it's thumb, index, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, middle. And then you can try and switch in between the 2 of them. And then I'll switch to string 2 in the middle, the D. So on the high G, and then switch in the middle D to the middle D, high G, middle D, Okay, so a little bit fiddly that, but it's quite good for sort of developing a bit of dexterity, helping get a bit of independence of movement between your thumb and your 2 fingers. Plenty of examples where we can use a ring finger as well for finger picking patterns. We're kind of limited on number of strings here a little bit, so you'll find that the vast majority of things that you'll do will be thumb and these first 2 fingers, index and middle. But yeah, if you want to check out some of the other videos we've got, take your time with that and sort of develop it as a good sort of building blocks technique, because more complicated styles and songs often you need to build up these more, which seem like sometimes quite simple and basic patterns and ways of playing, but they're like the foundations of what you'll be doing when you play more advanced stuff. So check out some of our other videos, including the 12-bar blues one, and hopefully you'll find that useful, and we'll see you again soon here on Coda Guitar.